You confront them with the lie, coolly, deliberately. You state the facts, airtight and undeniable. Watch as their expression flickers. Shock, panic, calculation. That's not true, they say at first. Denial. As if you imagined it. As if the proof in your hand is a mirage. The game has begun. The board is set. They have made their first move. Feigning innocence. Hoping you'll fall for the illusion and back off. When you press forward, the weight of reality making the walls close in, they shift to step 2. Minimize. Reframe. Okay, maybe, but it wasn't like that. And honestly, I thought you knew. It's not really a big deal, is it? Besides, you've been acting suspicious, so of course I was worried about telling you. Like a player baiting you into a bad trade, they sacrifice a pawn. A small, controlled admission to distract from the real loss they seek to avoid. You hold firm. Their strategy adapts. The world is so unfair. Everyone lies sometimes. You don't know what it's like to be in my position. If you were in my shoes, you'd understand. Now, they've set up a fork, forcing you into an impossible choice. Either accept their shifting blame, or argue over a point so broad that no resolution is possible. It's not about the specifics anymore. It's about generalities and emotions, a diversion away from accountability. And when all else fails, they turn to the final trump card: self-victimization. I knew this would happen. I knew you'd never forgive me. I'm just a horrible person, right? Maybe I should just disappear. Maybe I don't even deserve to live. You've been maneuvered into a forced move, one where any response but sympathy makes you the villain. Suddenly, the focus has shifted. You're no longer the wronged party. You're the aggressor. And now you find yourself soothing them, reassuring them, convincing them that they are not the villain they so dramatically claim to be. The liar wins. The cycle continues. The manipulator's approach is predicated on an unrelenting resistance to responsibility. Like a chess master who knows every trick, they see the board several moves ahead. When faced with indisputable evidence, they do not respond with honesty or remorse, but instead employ a series of psychological maneuvers that exhaust, confuse, and ultimately shift focus away from their deception. These maneuvers unfold in a familiar sequence, each designed to force their opponent, who believes they are playing a fair game, into check. Denial is always their opening gambit, played with confidence. A manipulator understands that reality can be manipulated, like the positioning of pieces. And if they can implant the slightest doubt in their accuser's mind, they gain an advantage. If they are forced beyond denial, they turn to minimizing the issue, reframing it to appear benign or inconsequential. Their goal is not to disprove the lie, but to downplay its significance, making their accuser question why they are even upset. When minimization fails, externalizing blame becomes their next recourse. A manipulator never stands alone in their guilt. They tether their deception to external forces. An unfair world, a stressful situation, or even the accuser themselves. This is a gambit designed to make their opponent think they have no real winning move. The final and most insidious tactic is the performance of victimhood. Once all else has failed, the manipulator seeks to garner sympathy by casting themselves as the true sufferer. They take on the language of self-condemnation, but in a performative, exaggerated way. "Yes, I'm terrible. I'm the worst," they exclaim, turning the conversation into a referendum on their own suffering rather than their dishonesty. It is a devious move, for it forces the accuser into the role of comforter rather than interrogator. Like a player feigning resignation only to trap their opponent in an unexpected checkmate, the manipulator lures their victim into an emotional response that ensures their survival. In addition to their arsenal of emotional manipulation, deceptive individuals often employ a more cerebral technique when confronted, something that could be phrased as torture testing words. This is akin to a chess player who refuses to play the game itself, instead endlessly debating whether a knight should really be allowed to move in an L shape, or if it is a knight at all. This is not a legitimate rhetorical strategy taught in debating clubs or formal argumentation. Instead, it is a tactic of obfuscation designed to derail a discussion by fixating on minutiae. A famous example of this is Bill Clinton's deposition statement.
That statement is a completely false statement. Whether or not Mr. Bennett knew of your relationship with Ms. Lewinsky, the statement that there was no sex of any kind, in any manner, shape, or form with President Clinton was an utterly false statement. Is that correct?
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yes.
If is means is and never has been, that's one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement.
You're the President of the United States, and your attorney tells the United States District Court Judge that there's no sex of any kind, in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, and you feel no obligation to do anything about that at that deposition, Mr. President.
Now, if someone had asked me on that day, are you having any kind of sexual relations with Ms. Lewinsky? That is, ask me a question in the present tense, I would have said no, and it would have been completely true. I would have said no, and it would have been completely true.
This digression, seemingly absurd, exemplifies the technique. Rather than addressing the core issue of his dishonesty, Clinton managed to redirect attention to a pointless linguistic debate, forcing his interrogators to defend their own usage of language rather than pressing him on his actions. The effectiveness of this strategy lies in its ability to exhaust the opponent. Conversations become circular, reduced to pedantic squabbles over definitions, rather than the actual deception. It is a duplicitous and frustrating maneuver because it forces the accuser into a defensive posture, making them prove something that was already self-evident. This erosion of confidence is closely linked to gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation that seeks to make someone question their reality. While all manipulators lie, not all lies constitute gaslighting. True gaslighting is a sustained effort to make the victim believe they are mistaken, confused, or even mentally unstable. The term gaslighting has been overused in popular discourse, often applied to any situation where one person deceives another. However, its true meaning is more nuanced. It is not just lying, but an effort to systematically rewrite another person's perception of reality. Gaslighters will insist that past events did not occur, that words were never spoken, and that the victim's memory is flawed. Over time, the victim begins to doubt their own mind, making them more dependent on the manipulator for their sense of reality. Pathological lying is a concept that remains controversial within psychology and psychiatry. The DSM-5 does not officially recognize it as a standalone disorder, instead categorizing it as a behavioral trait often associated with antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. This association speaks to the compulsive nature of pathological lying, where deception is not simply a tool, but an ingrained way of interacting with the world. Unlike ordinary dishonesty, which is often motivated by a clear incentive, pathological lying can be self-defeating, serving no immediate practical benefit to the liar. It is chronic and compulsive, spanning years or even an entire lifetime. Some pathological liars fabricate stories they seem to believe themselves, blurring the line between reality and fiction. This raises an important question. Do pathological liars know that they are lying? The answer varies. Some are fully aware of their fabrications and use them strategically, while others exist in a nebulous state where their own reality becomes indistinguishable from the lies they tell. It is important to note that while all pathological liars engage in manipulative deception, not all manipulators are pathological liars. The difference lies in intent and self-awareness. A pathological liar often lies reflexively, as if by instinct, sometimes without fully understanding why. Their lies may not be designed to manipulate others in an immediate, calculated manner. Rather, lying itself is their baseline mode of existence. Manipulators, by contrast, use deception as a means to an end. Their lies are often strategic, designed to exert control over a person or situation. They employ dishonesty to force others into submission, shifting blame, evading accountability, or gaining sympathy. While some pathological liars may also be manipulators, the two are not always interchangeable. A manipulator is more like a chess player, thinking several moves ahead, calculating every deception with precision. A pathological liar, on the other hand, moves pieces randomly, without necessarily considering the broader implications of their dishonesty. The term pathological liar is frequently misused, often applied to anyone who lies frequently or consistently. However, true pathological lying is a deeply ingrained behavior that differs from ordinary dishonesty. While all pathological liars are dishonest, not all dishonest people are pathological liars. The key distinction is the compulsion to lie, regardless of tangible benefit. The casual overuse of the term dilutes its meaning, conflating everyday deceit with a far more complex psychological condition. Manipulators lie with purpose, while pathological liars lie as if compelled by an unseen force. One is a tactician seeking advantage. The other is an individual lost in the fabric of their own falsehoods. Engaging with a manipulator is like playing a rigged chess game. At first, the board appears ordinary, the rules understood, the turns predictable. You move your piece with careful precision, but something is off. The opponent subtly alters the rules mid-game, shifting their pieces in ways they shouldn't be able to, and then insists that this was always allowed. You point it out, but they smile, tilting their head, questioning your interpretation of the rules. Perhaps you misunderstood. Perhaps the game was never what you thought. You play on, convinced you can outmaneuver them, catch them in their deception. But every time you corner them, the board resets, the positions shift, and the cycle begins again. Your king is always in jeopardy, but never through a legitimate move, always through misdirection, sleight of hand, and feigned ignorance. Every time you anticipate checkmate, they twist the game again. The only way to win is to recognize that this is not chess at all. It is an illusion of a game, a trap designed to consume your energy while they rewrite the rules in their favor. The true masterstroke is not to forfeit, but to refuse to sit at the board in the first place. A manipulator thrives on engagement, on the belief that their opponent will keep playing. The real checkmate is to walk away and let them sit alone. A player without an opponent. A king without a board. While it is true that many manipulators and liars are made, not born, personal responsibility must be acknowledged. The cycle of deception and manipulation may begin with external influences, abuse, neglect, or learned behavior. But at some point, rationalization must stop. A person who was manipulated and abused is a victim only up to the moment they begin inflicting the same harm on others. From that point forward, they must be held accountable, just as we all are for our actions. There is a clear difference between understanding why someone became a manipulator and excusing their behavior. While reasons may exist, they do not equate to justification. The line between explanation and exoneration must remain distinct. To continue tolerating deception on the basis of past suffering only ensures its perpetuation. In the end, the weight of responsibility lies with the individual, regardless of how they arrived at that moment of choice. At that moment, they are no longer pawns, but rooks, moving in direct, unyielding lines. With force and determination, they abandon any pretense of being passive, and now, actively and aggressively, attempt to control the board, or change its shape altogether. Check.